All right, let's play historical detectives today. We're going to try and uncover the secrets of what society, politics, and just daily life was like in ancient India. And our main clue? Well, it's a collection of texts you might not expect, the Brahmin Granths. So yeah, let's dive right in.
So think about this for a second. How in the world do we piece together a picture of a society from thousands of years ago? I mean, there are no photos, no newspapers, nothing like that. So where do we even start looking for answers? Well, it turns out the clues are kind of hidden in plain sight, right inside ancient religious texts. And the key to unlocking all this, it lies in a very specific set of texts called the Brahmin Granths. Now here's the thing, they were never meant to be history books, but as we're about to see, they are absolutely packed with historical clues, almost like a secret key to understanding the even more famous Vedas.
So, what are these things anyway? Well, you can think of the Brahmin Granths as super detailed instruction manuals. Their whole purpose was to explain the really complex hymns you find in the Vedas. They were written for priests to make absolutely sure they performed the sacred rituals, or yajnas, perfectly, down to the last detail.
This slide just lays it out perfectly. The relationship is pretty simple when you look at it like this. If the Vedas are the collection of sacred hymns, the songs basically, then the Brahmana Granths are the official user manual. They explain what the songs mean and exactly how and when you're supposed to use them during the rituals.
And what you're seeing here is that each of the 4 main Vedas has its own set of companion Granths. Now, for our investigation, we're going to be looking for clues in texts like the Aitareya, which is linked to the Rig Veda, and especially the Shatapatha Brahman from the Yajur Veda. That one is a real gold mine of information, one of the most detailed sources we have.
Okay, this is where the detective work really kicks into high gear. Even though these texts are all about religion and ritual, they accidentally created a perfect mirror, reflecting the society and politics of their time. So let's start digging into the clues they left behind for us.
So, the first big clue we find points to a really structured society. The texts describe 4 distinct social classes, or varnas. And the Shatapatha Brahmana, for instance, doesn't just list them out. It actually assigns each one a different job to do within the sacred rituals. This shows us that this social hierarchy wasn't just an idea. It was deeply woven into the fabric of everyday life.
And what about the role of women? This is really interesting. This quote right here from the Shatapatha Brahmin calls the wife Ardhangini, which means the other half. It meant that a man's religious ceremonies were seen as incomplete without his wife there. That gave her a real position of respect. But at the same time, other parts of the text show her role was also limited, so it paints a really complex picture of both dignity and constraint.
Now, switching gears to politics, there's one figure who really stands above everyone else, the king. Texts like the Aitareya Brahman make it crystal clear that society was shifting towards a system of monarchy. The king is described as the supreme ruler, and his power and his authority are major themes.
So how does a king show everyone he's in charge? Through massive rituals like the Ashvamedha Yagna, the horse sacrifice. But this was no quiet little ceremony. No way. This was a huge political statement. It was a way for the king to show off his dominance, to symbolize his ambition to expand his empire, and, this is the crucial part, to get a kind of divine, religious stamp of approval for his power.
You know, these texts also give us a sort of map of the political world back then. The Shatapatha Brahmana specifically names these early states, or janapads, like Kuru, Panchala, and Videha. This is solid proof that organized political territories were forming and that society was moving beyond simple tribal groups. All right, so we've got society, we've got politics, but what about the daily grind? You know, how did people make a living? Let's see what the Granths asps can tell us about the economy and culture. Well, the texts paint a really clear picture of a world built on agriculture. The Shatapatha Brahman talks a lot about how important farming and grains were, and right alongside that was animal husbandry. And even though there wasn't any cash, texts like the Kashyataki Brahman mention people exchanging goods, which hints at a pretty lively barter system.
But if there's one thing you need to understand about this economy, it's this. The cow was wealth. Above everything else, the cow was the ultimate measure of how rich you were. Texts like the Aitareya Brahmana are totally clear on this. Livestock, and especially the cow, was the main form of capital. It had huge economic and sacred value.
And, you know, life wasn't all just work and farming. There was art. There was culture, too. The Panchvinsha Brahman, which is the companion text for the musical Samaveda, actually gives detailed instructions on chanting. This shows us how art forms like music were growing and developing, all deeply connected with religious practice. So, we've examined all the evidence. Let's step back for a second and put it all together. What can these religious scriptures really tell us about history? First, a really important warning for any good detective. We have to remember the bias of our source. These are not objective history books, not even close. They're religious texts written from a priest's point of view, mainly to prove why the rituals were important. The history we find inside is almost like an accidental byproduct.
But even with that bias, just look at what we've uncovered. We've seen a massive political shift from tribes to kingdoms. We've got evidence of people expanding eastward into the Ganga Plains. We've confirmed a clearly structured social hierarchy and an economy based on farming and cattle. And hearing about figures like King Janaka of Videha suggests that these stories are actually rooted in real people and real events.
And all of this leaves us with one final, really big thought. The Brahmin Granths show us that sometimes the best historical clues are hiding in places we'd never think to look. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? To truly understand the history of a civilization, how important is it to first understand the things its people believed were sacred?